What's up, everyone, and welcome. In this episode, we're going to talk about a lone wolf apt group using humanitarian and political lures to infect unwitting victims. The story highlights the scope of the task we in the security industry must face. We in the IT security industry are responsible for educating users of all tech devices on how to avoid becoming victim of malicious actors. And this includes laptops, desktops, servers, cell phones, tablets, and IoT devices. It further exemplifies for me why we need to stay up to date on all of these important news stories. Even if on face value you don't see the connection to your environment, whether personal or business related, in the long run, somewhere in your life, all of these stories affect you. So keep up the good work and continue watching my episodes. I hope I am bringing valued perspective and learnings from each of the events for you. Now, whether you think I missed something or did something really great, I hope to see more of your comments down below. Lastly, don't forget to like and subscribe, of course. And that's about it for now. So let's get into the story.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
An apt described as a lone wolf is exploiting a decades-old Microsoft flaw to deliver a barrage of commodity rats to organizations in India and Afghanistan, researchers have found. Attackers use political and government-themed malicious domains as lures in the campaign, which targets mobile devices with out-of-the-box rats such as dcRAT and QuasarRAT for Windows and AndroidRAT. They're delivering the rats in malicious documents by exploiting CVE 2017-11882, according to a report published Tuesday by Cisco Talos. The threat actor, tracked by Cisco Talos from the beginning of the year through the summer, disguises itself behind a front that seems legitimate, posing as a Pakistani IT firm called Bunse Technologies. CVE 2017-11882 is a more than 20-year-old memory corruption vulnerability in Microsoft Office that persisted for 17 years before the company patched it in 2017. However, as recently as 2 years ago, attackers were seen exploiting the bug, which allows them to run malicious code automatically without requiring user interaction. The advanced persistent threat behind the campaign also uses a custom file enumerator and infector in the reconnaissance phase of the two-step attack, followed by a second phase added in later versions of the campaign that deploys the ultimate rat payload. To host the malware payloads, the threat actor registered multiple names with political and government themes used to fool victims, particularly ones linked to diplomatic and humanitarian efforts in Afghanistan to target entities in that country. This campaign is a classic example of an individual threat actor employing political, humanitarian, and diplomatic themes in a campaign to deliver commodity malware to victims. In this case, rats, packed with multiple functionalities to achieve complete control over the victim's endpoint, Cisco Talos' Ashir Balhota wrote in the post. The campaign reflects an increased trend by both cybercriminals and apps to use commodity rats instead of custom malware against victims for a number of reasons. Using commodity rats gives attackers a range of out-of-the-box functionality, including preliminary reconnaissance capabilities, arbitrary command execution, and data exfiltration. The rats also act as excellent launch pads for deploying additional malware against their victims, Mahalte wrote. Using commodity malware also saves attackers both the time and resource investment in developing custom malware, as the rats have stock features requiring minimal configuration changes. In their post, researchers broke down the two-stage attack process as well as the specifics of each rat they observed attackers using in the campaign. Rat functionality varies depending on the payload, they said, but generally includes capabilities such as remote shells, process management, file management, keylogging, arbitrary command execution, and credential stealing. The infection chain consists of reconnaissance phase that starts with malicious RTF documents and PowerShell scripts that ultimately distribute malware to victims. Specifically, the threat actor uses the RTF to exploit the Office bug and execute a malicious PowerShell command that extracts and executes the next stage PowerShell script. That script then base64 decodes another payload. In the case researchers observed, it was a loader executable, and it activates it on the infected endpoint, Malhati wrote. The loader executable begins by establishing persistence for itself using a shortcut in the current user's startup directory, and then compiles hard-coded C code into an executable assembly. It then invokes the entry point for the compiled malicious code. The previously mentioned custom file, enumerator, and effector, researchers found. This C code, which is the final payload in the reconnaissance phase, contains the file enumerator, which lists specific file types on the endpoint and sends the file paths to the command and control server, along with file infector modules, which are different than typical executable infectors usually seen in the wild. Researchers have observed attackers switching up tactics to deploy commodity rats as the final payload starting in July. To do this, attackers tweaked the reconnaissance process slightly to leverage the second stage PowerShell script to create a .bat file on the disk. That file, in turn, would execute another PowerShell command to download and activate the rat payload on the infected endpoint, retrieving it from one of the site's attacker setup. So far, we've observed the delivery of 3 types of payloads from the remote locations discovered in this phase of the campaign: dcRAT, QuasarRAT, and a legitimate copy of the remote desktop client AnyDesk. The use of the last payload indicates a focus on manual operations, where the actor would have logged into the infected devices to discern if the access was of any value, according to his write-up. All in all, the tactics of the APT used in the campaign demonstrate aggressive proliferation as the goal, as the use of out-of-the-box malware combined with customized file infections gives them a straightforward point of entry onto a victim's network. Organizations should remain vigilant against such threats that are highly motivated to proliferate using automated mechanisms, he wrote. However, it seems likely that the group will eventually abandon its use of commodity malware for its own bespoke tools, which means there will probably be more threat campaigns in its future. Now, what can we learn from this story? Well, the fact that this exploit is against a bug that is 20 years old is insane. Companies are still using unpatched software to this degree boggles the mind. Even taking into account the fix in 2017, we're still talking about close to 5 years that this bug was patched, but some just have not updated their systems. Now, attackers use various lures to trick unsuspecting people to click on files, enable macros, and install their malicious software. In this specific case, they have incorporated diplomatic, humanitarian, political, and government-themed malicious domains to fool you and make you feel like it's official and legitimate. The attackers are targeting mobile devices with out-of-the-box rats as opposed to custom-built malware. Now, the serious takeaway from this fact, besides the benefits of out-of-the-box tools in terms of speed and flexibility, is that cybersecurity is not just for laptops, desktops, and servers, as I mentioned all the way at the beginning of this episode. We have to take a holistic look at security, at all of the devices, and the TTPs of these attackers to say, how are they trying to fool your users into opening up the doors and giving them the keys to the kingdom? It includes when you get an attachment and the attachment asks for to enable macros. What is your policy within your organization or within your family for dealing with that? You know, do you have a service either locally, or do you rely on some website that allows you to scan, like VirusTotal, allows you to scan files and attachments before they are opened, regardless of who it's coming from? Do you have whitelisted companies where they're known that an invoice coming from company XYZ is automatically open or is allowed to be open, or are they all run through these services? So these are processes, and this is part of the education process of all employees and, again, family members, to ensure that you can reduce the risk as much as possible of these types of attacks. So with that, I say thanks for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you haven't already, and smash the bell if you haven't already, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Don't forget to ride!